Hey, good Sunday evening, everybody. Welcome into the Rocky Top Rewind. I'm Eric Kane alongside Brent Hubbs, and we're here to recap, talk a lot of big picture stuff now the Tennessee football season is over. Tennessee falls in the first round of the college football playoffs by a score of 42-17 to Ohio State on Saturday night. The Rocky Top Rewind, the final one we're doing this football season, presented as always by our friends over at Spivey King and Spivey LLP. They wanted to hop on and do something with us, and they've done the baseball podcast last couple seasons. They've done the Rocky Top Rewind, so really appreciate the great people, their partnership. That's Spivey King and Spivey LLP. Couldn't be more thankful for them, and maybe you're in the same boat. If you need their services, you got a problem, they can find a solution for you. T and Trial Lawyers. For a free consultation, if you have a need, you can pick up the phone and dial 423-245-4185. You can visit them online at SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com as well. Appreciate our friends, presenting sponsor of the Rocky Top Rewind. That is Spivey King and Spivey LLP. All right, Brent Hubbs, not a whole lot from this football game last night that was good for Tennessee, and I know we'll talk a lot of big picture stuff, but overall 42-17 was the final score. Tennessee outscored 21-0 in the first quarter, fought back, did punch back in the second quarter, scored 10 points, down 21-10 at the break, and had the football to begin the second half. But nothing doing on that possession. Ohio State scores, and from there, that was pretty much the ball game. Unfortunate into a pretty good season for Tennessee, but a sour taste in the mouth exiting 2024 with the 42-17 loss at Ohio State.
Yeah, let me first of all say this. If anyone questions the passion and the loyalty and the embrace of the Tennessee fans for their program, then they're lost their ever-loving mind. I talked with a couple of national people in the press box yesterday who, quite frankly, aren't the biggest fan of all Twitter, okay, because they've come after them. But they were dumbfounded by the number of Tennessee fans that were there. And hats off to the Tennessee fans for showing up. And I listen, I mean, obviously not nearly what anybody had expected or hoped would happen in that game. You know, losing is one thing, not being particularly competitive, is another. And, that was hard to watch as a fan sitting in the cold and all of that. But hats off to the Tennessee fans for getting out there and for being there and, doing their best to take over as they could. Tennessee needed a quick start, and they didn't get it. Ohio State needed a quick start as much as Tennessee needed a quick start, and Ohio State got it. The face mask penalty was a killer penalty on the opening drive. I'm not saying Tennessee would have won the game or anything like that, because Ohio State was the better football team and basically every position on the football field last night. So I don't think Tennessee would have won, but you wanted to create some kind of doubt in the Ohio State fan base and the Ohio State team. A 3-and-out, gives you a little bit of juice and hey, let's see if we can get this thing going here. So that face mask penalty was just brutal on Tennessee, preventing that 3-and-out there. And then all of a sudden it became, what it became, 21-0. Tennessee was fortunate to be within an earshot, 11 points at the half. They had been thoroughly outplayed. Maybe if you get something going there, that first drive, in the second half, who knows? But Tennessee just couldn't get anything mustered. Listen, when it took you 16 plays, Eric, to go the length of the field to score a touchdown, you just weren't going to execute that high level every time you had the football to get back in it. And Tennessee was just not getting any explosive plays. And I think for me, big picture, as we kind of transition into some of that, that's where it starts for me with this offense. Okay. And listen, I know everybody's, we're calling for this person's head. And I get that. I understand. I'm not mad at anybody or anything like that. Josh Heupel and this offensive staff have to figure out how they can generate some explosive plays, how they can generate some 12 to 20 yard plays on a consistent basis to make things easier for them against quality competition. Okay. Against the high end people we're talking about competing against. No offense to Vanderbilt, no offense to Kentucky, Mississippi State. And I'm talking about those teams. I'm talking about the Georgias. When you're going to play a team like Ohio State, those types of teams, Tennessee's got to find a way to generate some plays because you're just not going to drive it 16 plays against them. And Tennessee's explosive plays have dwindled down every year. Okay, the last 2 years they've gone down, and they did some things better this year than they did last year, but not nearly what we thought they would be offensively.
Yeah, you talk about the lack of explosive plays in this football game. Tennessee, when you look at plays where I can share the screen right here. Yeah, you got plays through the air, gain of 15 or more yards, only 2. On the ground, rushes of 10 plus yards, only 4. 2 of those came by, Peyton Lewis there in the second half, and the 2 others were Nico Iamaleava scrambles. You look at Ohio State in this game, I mean, goodness gracious. 9 plays on the ground of yards through the air, 15 yards or more. 5 plays on the ground of 10 yards or more. I mean, it was a clear. I mean, it was night and day in that regard. You had a nice stat in that first quarter for Tennessee and Ohio State. Tennessee had given up 7 plays on the season of 30 yards or more, gave up 3 to Ohio State in the first quarter.
Yeah, technically it was 2 because they changed that run from a 30-yard run to a 29-yard run on the touchdown.
Right on the brink.
Yeah, point still stands. Tennessee had done a good job. And look, there's a lot of – I think Tim Banks has to look at a lot of things too. I mean, he's got to figure out some of that underneath stuff that gave them problems last night. But you can get away with some of that if you can bow your neck in the red zone, which they were much better at this year. You can live with giving up some of that underneath stuff from time to time. What you can't do is you can't get away with giving up 6 or 7 plays of 20 yards or more. And that's what got Tennessee last night. Yeah, and listen, I know give Kelly credit, give Chip Kelly credit. A lot of misdirection, some sideways stuff. We talked about it in Game Quest. We thought they would go that direction. What I didn't anticipate, Eric, was that they would be able to throw it over Tennessee's head with the regularity that they threw it over Tennessee's head. That can't happen defensively. That has to. You cannot allow that to happen in big games if you're Tim Banks. And that was the biggest disappointment for me coming out of that defensive play last night. There's a lot of things to be disappointed about, but I did not anticipate Tennessee giving up a half dozen 20 yards, 20 plus play yards the way they did last night.
Yeah, and you got Jeremiah Smith, you got Ibuka, you've got Carnell Tate, you got running backs going out of the backfield, running wheel routes, you got a tight end. Tennessee lost a lot of those guys.
I mean, there was one replay that they showed, I think it was on a touchdown run, the misdirection. All 3 linebackers were completely out of the play. They took themselves completely out of the play with the misdirection. So, again, there's lots of things that have to be addressed and have to be looked at. Schematically, I think they have to look at things. Roster-wise, they have to look at things. I think Josh Heupel has to look at, just kind of the overall picture, direction of his program. Where are they going offensively? Where does he feel like they are defensively? He's got 3 staff members on expiring deals. There's lots of things going on. But first and foremost right now, the biggest things going on is what does your roster retention look like? And I think that's about 9,000 of the questions that we have over here on the side. So, we'll see. I mean, obviously Christian Harrison has gone into the portal today. I don't think that's a huge shock to anyone that would happen. The question is, where are they with the rest of their roster retention? Where are they with, kind of their finances of things? And then go from there. I mean, we've talked about it for a couple of years now that it's not monopoly money. Ohio State spent more on their football roster than Tennessee did. They did. I mean, if all the numbers are true, Ohio State's between $21 million in their football roster. And that's, $5-6 million more than Tennessee spent in their football roster. That counts. Now you got to make sure you're spending your money the right way with the right people, but $6 million, $6 million.
Yeah.
So where are you in terms of how much money you can spend and that you have? I think that's the question we don't know. We know rev share is coming, but the question with rev share, Eric, is that's not going to be a salary cap necessarily because that doesn't eliminate collective money. So is Ohio State going to take rev share money of, say, $15 million and put it with the 20 that they spent this past year and they've got a $35 million budget? Or are they going to say, okay, we're going to put $5 million from our collective and play with a $25 million budget? I don't know the answer to that. I don't cover Ohio State like that. But we'll see where those people, where the spending is. The spending's more than double what it was in 22 across the board for college football teams. Can it sustain that? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I got a lot of big picture questions about the roster, and I've been starring a bunch of these questions. We're going to get into
let's roll with them.
Okay.
If you got another question, go ahead. I don't want to.
I wanted to pull up one stat real quick because
Sure.
again, there's nothing much to talk about with last night's game. But I saw this on Pro Football Focus. I know it's kind of small, it's kind of hard to read, but this is Will Howard's drop back chart essentially, and it's according to Pro Football Focus. Okay, I didn't chart all this, but it says 31 dropbacks in the football game from Will Howard. Blitzed 8 dropbacks, 25% of the time. That's not a high enough number when you're not making stops consistently, when you're not making third down stops, when you're allowing touchdowns on the first 3 possessions of the football game. It just felt like Tennessee, they just couldn't get any footing, wasn't bringing a whole lot of pressure. And I know, we talked about the Easton sack that was a face mask and how different that drive could have been in relation, how different the game could have been, but shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Is that not the only time they knocked Howard down?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't sacked in the football game.
That's what PFF said. That's the only knockdown they had. I mean, didn't even get knocked down after he released the ball. Is the way I read that. So
yeah,
that's not good enough. I mean, you can't let a quarterback play 10 Mississippi Rush on you, and that's basically what it was in the backyard last night. It felt like it was 10 Mississippi Rush, very similar to what Carson Beck did in the Georgia game. You can't allow that to happen, and somehow you gotta go and figure out how to get home, be more aggressive, blitz more. I mean, whatever you need to do. They're just not. There's again. I think the thing that you have to do is right now the whole focus has got to be on what your roster is going to look like. Okay, but I think you really got to take a long look at making sure what you're doing defensively works. What is your answer to what people did to you effectively as a defensive team? Now, Ohio State's the first team that really threw it over their head consistently. Okay, really good receivers, really good receivers. But why did that happen? What's the deal there? And then 2, what's your answer? What's plan B? Okay, when plan A doesn't work, what's plan B? Is it blitzing? Is it what are you going to do? I think the same for offense. What is your plan B when plan A doesn't go exactly according to the script the way it was supposed to? I think those are what you have to look like. And, again, I've just seen these scrolling by. I mean, I agree. There's some thought out there that Tennessee needs to incorporate more motion and shifts in their offense. I don't disagree with that. I mean, they've got to get some things going that stresses the second layer of the defense more than they're stressing them right now, I think. Now, I'm not a football coach, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a football coach either, but you can go back and, watching the tape again and, from what I know about football, it feels like against Georgia, against Florida last year, against Ohio State yesterday, again, if your plan A is not working, you've got to mix some things up. And that's why I brought up that stat about blitzing. 31 dropbacks, you blitz 8 times. I mean, like, what's going on here? That stat just really jumped out, and I didn't like that. Let's go to Donovan here. He said, embarrassing, awful. I mean, this performance is just a bad taste for the entire offseason. We have good players. We got to get some dudes at receivers with next year's schedule. 9-3 is the ceiling unless we improve. Yeah, Donovan, I appreciate it. Thanks so much. It kind of goes to your point about, I mean, it's all about roster management. You had a note in the 10 things I think I learned. Tennessee got back at about 5 a.m. this morning. Coaches were back in the office at about 9 a.m. Of course, you got Christmas holidays coming up here and New Year's, but there's going to be a lot of roster talk, a lot of players coming, having conversations, looking into the portal. We're not going to know exactly what this roster is kind of look like for the most part until the next couple of weeks go by. Transfer portal is going to close on the 28th, but of course Tennessee can still get players out of the portal. Need to upgrade at some spots, that is for sure, and then you look at what could happen for next football season.
Yeah, and I mean, here's what you're hoping that this team has a sour taste in their mouth, and that they used it the way they're supposed to use it in the off season and build and go from there. I know a lot of people have talked about what happened in the Orange Bowl after the '97 season. in that Orange Bowl game. I think this is a little different. And I say that because the biggest thing that happened in that Orange Bowl game to me was just the lack of physicality on defense. They just got ran over up front. I came away last night going, boy, they feel void of playmakers. They feel like they didn't match up playmaker-wise, either side of the ball, okay? And so I don't know that it's just a straight physicality thing. I think it's some schematics and some perimeter stuff that you got to work on and get going from there. And again, I mean, I don't want to be this guy that like this is the crossroad moment. I don't want to be that. But this is a moment in time where you've got to do a real hard deep dive into kind of where you are, what you're doing schematically on offense, what works, what doesn't work, how can you tweak it, what can you go, and all those types of things, and then go from there.
Let's get into some of your questions here that we've starred. You kind of touched on this earlier. I know you wrote about, in your opinion, any coaching staff changes coming. The 3 members of the staff are, not going to have contracts in February. Can you give us the latest on who that is? And most notable, of course, is Tim Banks, who they're trying to work out a deal with.
Yeah, I mean, you got Tim Banks, you got Mike Eckler, you got Willie Martinez, who are all on one-year deals that expire at the end of January. And we'll see where Josh Heupel goes with that. We know that Tim Banks has had an offer in front of him for a while. He has elected to kind of shelf it, not deal with it till after the end of the season. So we'll what is that? What does he want to do? I don't have any rumblings of him being in line for a head coaching job right now. Kind of where that went at is where it starts at. I'm not a big, got to fire all these guys. You got to do this, but listen, they've got to play better up front on the offensive line and pass protection. They've got to get better at receiver. Now, is that all Jimmy's and Joe's? Is that coaching, development? I mean, that's Josh Heupel's decision. That's why he makes $200,000 a week to make those decisions. And look, sometimes those are really hard decisions that you have to make. He's not been in the point where he's made many of those decisions in terms of letting people go and making a lot of staff changes. Generally, any change that's happened is somebody has willingly left to go to another job. So we'll see. We'll see how Josh Heupel kind of approaches this. Again, I know it sounded like this is Armageddon. I'm not saying it's Armageddon, but you don't, after a game like that, you don't stand pat. You don't just say, well, it's all good. Okay, well, good year in the playoffs. It was great. All right, whatever. That was an eye opener last night about where you are and where you're trying to get to. How do you get there? Those are the things that Josh Heupel has to be thinking about when he thinks about his football program in the short term and in the long term.
Yeah, I did a video earlier. Nobody, 10 wins. You beat Florida and Alabama. You made the college football playoffs. If you said all that, back in August and said, but you're going to lose in the first round, everybody would take that, right? I mean, what a season. But nobody wants to hear that right now, and I understand that. That's a conversation for next week or whatever. You lost 42-17, and to your point, you're right. If you're not trying to evolve, if you're not trying to grow, if you're not trying to adapt, then you're in the wrong profession. I know Josh Heupel's always trying to adapt and do those things, but to your point, 42-17. Somebody asked on the board, how do you, after last night, how do you play with the big dogs? And my response was, I think Tennessee's roster significantly improved over the last couple of years, but last night was an eye-opener. I mean, there was a talent gap, and it was wide last night. And you saw, going back to, how much it costs to do business in this game and, with the elites of the elites. And, 42-17, there was, one football team that had more talent. We knew they had more talent going into the game, but certainly, the game, the way it played out last night, you can kind of see that up close. Caleb wants to know over under 1.5 portal wide receivers. Brent, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Tennessee had 4 scholarship wide receivers available by the end of the game last night. Is that right?
I didn't add them up. I mean, they had Mike Matthews, they had Braylon Staley, they had
Brazel,
McCoy, Brazel, Dante Thornton. That's 5.
That's 5, yeah.
Okay, I guess they had 5 available last night.
Yeah.
What did they take? 6? They travel 6 up there.
I guess so, because you had Squirrel in that mix. He didn't finish. And then, Laycock wasn't there, Nimrod wasn't there, Webb wasn't there. So they didn't have that many to begin with. So
here's the thing. I mean, they're bringing in some young guys. I mean, I don't necessarily obsess over the number of bodies. It's just, where are the playmakers in those bodies? Where's the guy that scares somebody? And listen, I'm not saying go find Jeremiah Smith. Okay. Dude is a freak. They don't grow those guys on trees every day. Okay. He's different. But where's the guy that you can throw it to and he's going to win the one-on-one?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where's the guy who's going to win the physical matchup on the hard slant and go get the ball on a consistent basis? Those are the types of things that I'm saying from a playmaker standpoint. Tennessee, that group, and I like those kids. I don't think that group did not play near to the level I thought they would play at this year. I thought Chris Brazel would be a much bigger impact guy than what he was for this team. I mean, if there's a position group that I misread, that I had wrong in the preseason, it's that group. Because I thought that group had some dynamics to them. We just didn't see that consistently enough.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because 2 straight off seasons, Tennessee's gone to the transfer portal and gotten a wide receiver that everybody's been excited about. Now, Dante Thornton turned into a pretty decent wide receiver this year. He was your big play guy, but he missed so much time. He was always battling an injury or whatnot, just the lack of consistency there. But he was a flop last season. Chris Brazel did not have the season that he wanted here in 2024. And that's unfortunate because, Tennessee needs to go, in my opinion, go get another wide receiver because you've lost so many. But, how much are you willing to go and get one? I don't know. I can't answer that question. It's not worked out to this point each of the last 2 off seasons, but still, you got to go out and have some guys to kind of help this offense go. And I also said this on the postgame podcast last night because we were kind of talking about Smith and Ibuka and Tate and all them. And again, Ohio State's an outlier. That's the best skilled players offensive-wise in the country for a team. Cedric Tillman was a dog. Jalen Hyatt was elite. He's playing in the NFL. He had elite speed, and Tennessee was able to scheme it up and go get it. Velus Jones was really, really good in this offense. And, Brew McCoy has done a lot of good things in this offense, but it just feels like, those guys were different, to where what you have so far right now here at the wide receiver position. And you got to get back to that for sure.
Well, and I think the other thing too, and this is why I was talking about not just personnel. It's just not go write a check and try to get somebody to come in here. I think this is why you have to look at where you are schematically. It's not that everybody has unlocked the puzzle, okay, and all of a sudden, well, they figured it all out, like they solved the Rubik's Cube or something of offense. I do think teams are definitely playing Tennessee differently. And what I mean by that is I think, Eric, and you would know this probably better than me with football, I think defenses are conceding some run stuff. We're okay with the 4-yard run. We're okay with a 6-yard run. Well, we're not okay with a 35-yard run.
No.
But you don't even count numbers in the box because it feels like Tennessee's going against a light box every snap. Unless maybe it's 3rd and 2. But it's always a light box in early downs, it feels like. And it almost feels like they're daring Tennessee to run. Will you be patient enough to run it every play and try to take 4 yards and 4 yards and 4 yards and do that for 16 plays, the length of the field? Because we're going to play our safeties back. We're going to give help over the top, and we're just not going to let you run by us. Now, Tennessee got behind some guys some this year and didn't execute some of it. There's no doubt about that. But it certainly feels like teams are more reluctant to cram the box.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That they're just saying, you know what, we're going to play safeties back. We're going to not let you get going with splash plays. We'll see if you can patiently, methodically go the length of the football field. That's what it feels like. So if that's the adjustment, how much of this is, boy, they just lack all these playmakers versus, and you got to figure out a different way to skin that cat if that's how defenses are going to play you.
Think about the first 2 years with this staff, right? You had Javonte Payton, and we all made jokes. I think he finished the year in 2021, 18 receptions. I think he had 7 or 8 touchdowns, whatever it was. But they would throw a splash play to him in the first quarter, and then it's like they would never look his way again. But that was an early splash play just waiting to happen. You had Jalen Hyatt that, of course, made those splash plays in 2022. Cedric Tillman in 21 as well. So the first couple of years in the system, yeah, I mean Tennessee was beating teams over the top and going after it, and the defenses certainly in the Southeastern Conference made the adjustments, and I would agree with you. It's are you patient enough to get your 4 to 5, get your 4 to 5, get your 4 to 5, or are you going to be impatient and try to go and get yours like we've seen at times this year and last year as well, and then it's more punts, more 3 and outs, and it kind of changes the way the game is called and all that.
Well,
Again, it just goes back to adapting. It goes back to self-scouting, trying to evolve, trying to figure out different ways. And I completely agree. It's way more than just going and writing a check and trying to bring in players and all that. It's always more than that. But Tennessee's got to do a lot of self-scouting this offseason because the offense certainly has not been where it needed to be this year, and it wasn't where it needed to be last year.
Well, think about this. I mean, in the last 2 seasons, Tennessee's had against Power 5 opponents, they've had 32 plays of 30 yards or more. Josh Heupel's first year here, as everybody was learning his offense, they had 32 plays of 30 yards or more in one season. I mean, it's a pretty – and so is it all Hendon Hooker? Was he the drive? Is it all Alex Golish? Is that the deal? Do they suddenly – is it that Tennessee's changed, or is everybody changing how they're playing Tennessee? I think it's more the latter, and Tennessee's got to figure out what the counterpunch is to that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Caleb wants to know, hey, why are we not running tempo anymore? That's an easy question, or that's an easy response for me. And you and I talked about it kind of going into this game. Tennessee wasn't winning the early downs. Tennessee wasn't winning first and second down. Tennessee was in third and mid, third and long. Tennessee wasn't getting first downs. If you're not moving the sticks, you can't get into your tempo. And I thought tempo was going to be a big kind of a game plan, for Tennessee, and something I think Tennessee could have hurt Ohio State with. But it could never really get going last night because you weren't winning the early downs. And that's unfortunate. And that's something Tennessee, used to its advantage back in those earlier years. Slowed some things down. And you can slow some things down and learn how to win in different ways, run game defense, and Tennessee did all that. But certainly in a game like last night, Tennessee wasn't winning early downs, and it was third and long, and you got to slow things down, call a play, set things up, and your tempo just never really gets started.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, and it's a small thing, but I think it shows up from time to time. Second quarter, Tennessee's trying to go with more tempo, right? Squirrel White catches the ball across the middle, gets up, he's hurt, and they got to slow down. No tempo. Yep. They have another play where they throw one to Brew McCoy or to Braylon. I guess it was to McCoy at that point, or maybe it was Staley later on in the game. A couple of times they get knocked out of bounds on the Tennessee sideline. That eliminates tempo.
Yep.
When you go out of bounds on your sideline between the 20s, or wherever the coach's box ends up stopping at nowadays, wherever the chalk marks are, the painted box. When you go out of bounds there, tempo's over. That's a substitution situation. Whether you sub or not, the official is going to stand over the football there. And I think that affects a little bit of your rhythm. Again, I don't think that that's the sole reason of it, but I think that slowed down some tempo stuff as well. I just, again, we'll see what the next version of this offense is. You know what I'm saying? I don't, again, it's not all lost. Okay. It's not suddenly, man, you just can't line up and compete, clean the house. Everybody's gone. It's not any of that at all right now, but you got to get your next generation of your offense, right? Your next version of your offense, I think has got to come out, and it's got to have some tweaks to it. It's got to be some different things, some motion stuff. I think can be a factor in there. We saw some tweaks this year with the 2 tight end personnel, and it was effective in a lot of ways. But to get those splash plays, you're going to have to get a little more creative, I think, as opposed to just you're not going to go out there and get 2 man coverage and run a switch route with no safety help over the top. You're not getting that look because of the way teams are playing you right now.
Yep, I remember Tennessee motioned a lot back in 2022, and Brian Kelly said this is an offense that doesn't really motion a lot, and we're like, what are you talking about, man? Here's
what's interesting about that motion in 22. A lot of that motion was they would motion out and stop. It was not continual motion when the ball was snapped, but they would motion out into stack receivers, and some different things like that. I thought one of the things that Ohio State did a great job of last night was their motion was full speed. They were at top end speed when the ball was snapped, and man, that trailing linebacker was toast. He didn't have a prayer at that point. I thought that was an interesting wrinkle. Maybe Tennessee looks at some. And again, you're doing a self scout. You're looking around. That's why you get paid lots of money. It can't look the same as it looked this year. You got to have some tweaks to it moving forward.
Tim wants to know, and you kind of wrote about this in your 10 things I think I learned. Why does Heupel not have the team ready after open dates? Arkansas, that came after an open date, and of course the college football playoff lost to Ohio State. Tennessee had essentially 3 weeks before that game.
Well, yeah. Listen, and I thought that's why they had to start fast last night. I'm not making any excuse for Tennessee. They walked into a Hornets last night. You were going to get one of two things from Ohio State. You were going to get a very angry Ohio State that played really good football, or you were going to get an Ohio State that went to the house pretty quick. Tennessee did not give them anything to think about going to the house on because they got off to the fast start, and it was Katie bar the door. The Hornets' nest was in full tilt for Ohio State at that point. To Tim's point, and I don't know the answer to this, I think that's another thing you have to self-scout. You've got to look at what do we need to do better during open dates? What do we need to do better during time off? Obviously Tennessee was ready to play Clemson in the Orange Bowl. Mm-hmm. They were ready to play Iowa last year after a long break. Now, I understand Iowa's not what you played last night. They're not. Arkansas is a red flag this year. What would we have Dylan Sampson say afterwards? Well, we had some lackadaisical stuff. Like, you got to take note of those things, and you got to look at that. What should you have done differently? Do you need to hit more? Did you not hit enough? Did you not practice enough? What did you do that changed? Did anything you did in your preparation in terms of how you practice affect what you did last night? Was your plan not good enough, or did you not execute your plan? If you didn't execute it, why didn't you execute it? What was your preparation? Those are all things you have to look at. I don't have an answer to his question. I think it's a great question.
Yeah, and then even for just a normal open day during the regular season, just simple things like what days you choose to practice. Because an open date is when you try to give your players some rest to get healthy and all that, but you're still out there doing some things. You're still out there practicing. Okay, it's not like you just take the week off, see you next week, right? You're out there practicing, but which days are you going? Which days are contact? Which days are full pads? Are there any full pads? You look at all that stuff for sure. That's part of the self-scouting. Maybe you've done the same. Josh Heupel's been a head coach for, 7 years now? He just completed his 7th year altogether as a head coach, 3 at UCF and 4 here. Maybe you've done the same thing all 7 years. Maybe you change that up next year. That's part of what a self-scout is. Donovan says, Hubs, we need David Sanders to play early and to play well. That is for sure. David Sanders is obviously the crown jewel of the recruiting class, and there was a lot of drama there late, but he's going to be a guy that's going to be expected to play early and often. Tim wants to know.
To me, he's a first-round draft pick. That's what I equate it to. With what you're doing NIL-wise to get him here as a first-round draft pick, who in the NFL drafts somebody in the first round and sets them? You've got to play right out of the gate. That's the world we're involved in now. He's going to have growing pains. There are going to be moments where you're like, holy smokes, whatever. But I think this is the world we're living in now. I think you got to play those guys. If you've got a lot of initial investment in a guy, you got to play a guy.
Tim says, Brent, we're way behind on NIL. The top teams spend the most. Tennessee, I feel like Tennessee is assumed to have one of the better NIL. They got their stuff together. There's no doubt about that. They're run by great people. I think it's just assumed that Tennessee's got one of the best, NIL programs and across the country. There's a lot of good ones out there, and obviously that's a huge part of the recruiting landscape today, both in the high school ranks and in the transfer portal. Tennessee, and I think there's another question here in a moment. I think I got to start somewhere about the portal. How active is Tennessee going to be in this transfer portal? Is it going to be? I know that affects the numbers. Who else leaves? How many you're going to go get? But is this going to be more cherry picking, or are they going to use name, image, likeness to go and get some dudes? I think that's what a lot of the fans are wondering right now that the season's officially over.
Well, let me first say this. I don't think the dollar figure that was thrown out in a report that somebody put out there of $11 million is accurate. I think Tennessee's investment into football was higher than $11 million in this particular team. Now, it wasn't at 20, but I think it was higher than $11 million. I think it was probably closer towards 14, something like that, than it was 11. Where are they? Where are they budget wise? I don't know. You spent a lot. I think you spent a good bit of money on this signing class. You're trying to retain some guys that people on this chat would like to see retained. And then where are you? What's your budget number? We don't know what that number is. Okay, we know the rev share number that's out there is 21 million, but that's not just for football. That's for everybody. Mm-hmm. Okay, how are you going to earmark that if you're Tennessee? And then are you supplementing that with some money from your collective, or is a lot of the people that were given the collective now given to the university for donor points and all those things to go into the rev share program? I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't think Tennessee is going to come back with 6 or 7 transfer portal additions to this class. I may be wrong, but I don't think they're going to go with a large volume of guys in this particular portal cycle. Again, could be wrong, but they brought in 4 guys so far. We'll see who else visits. But right now it doesn't feel like Tennessee's, they're not in on 15 guys trying to get 6 of them. That's just not what it feels like right now to me.
Yeah, brought in 4 guys so far. One they've gotten a commitment from. We'll see what happens. Holiday coming up this week, obviously, but now that the season's over, full speed ahead in that regard. Kevin wants to know, hey, honest opinion, do you guys think Heupel can actually win a national championship at Tennessee? Seems like when the big games show up, his teams are not ready. Playing games on the road, playing games in big environment. Again, your program's got to continue to evolve, right? I mean, Tennessee's won 10 games twice in the last 3 years. That's a step. Tennessee's, where it's run the football, that's a step. Explosive plays. The defense has come around this year. That's a step. Can Tennessee win a championship here with Josh Heupel?
Sure. I don't have any reason to believe that they can't. Are they knocking on the door for it? After last night, you have real questions about how close they're knocking on the door.
You see that gap. It's you wrote this, like, Tennessee deserves to be in the playoffs. Absolutely. Tennessee, Indiana, SMU, Clemson. They weren't winning a national championship this year.
Yeah, but in 1996, Tennessee was down 35-0 at home to Florida. Okay, 97, they got to the SEC championship game. They go to take on Nebraska. They get manhandled. Didn't look like they belong out there. Lots of the same questions. Can Philip Fulmer ever get you to, quote, that next level? And then with a team nobody expected, they went out, went unbeaten, and won the national title. I know that's eons ago, and I know the game's different, all those types of things. But do I think Josh Heupel's talented enough as a coach that he could win a national championship? Yeah, I don't have any doubts about that. Now, where's his CEO abilities? Roster management. That's the whole key to this thing. What does it look like? Now, again, you've got to tweak some stuff. Okay, I don't care what your roster looks like. You still have to tweak some things on both sides of the ball. But what does your roster look like? How do you manage who you need to keep, who you don't need to keep? Do you understand you can't keep everybody because you don't have enough money to pay everybody? The word no is going to become an answer, a legitimate answer in college football, which has never been the case at the big time schools, at the high level schools. So, we'll see. The game is very different than it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and it's only changing. It's only going to continue to evolve, and we'll see if the market adapts and the market comes back and kind of guides itself a little bit, or does somebody ever actually come up with something that could create some kind of salary cap? I don't know. We'll see. This is not what anybody thought football would be 4 years ago when NIL come into play. They knew there'd be some money spent, Eric, but I don't think anybody knew or thought that this was going to be a situation where, teams were spending $20 million on football rosters.
Yeah, and again, you said it's doubled in the last 2 years. It's pretty wild. Eric says, hey, I'm sick and tired of hearing people complain about Nico when you have no protection and people can drop 7, still get pressure. No quarterback in the world is going to do good. Last night, Tennessee had no rhythm, had no heartbeat offensively at all. Tennessee's best offense was Nico, and Nico didn't even play very well, and he'd be the first to tell you that. I love how they did some design quarterback runs in the second quarter. That was awesome, but a lot of the offense was him just scrambling around when the pressure broke down in front of him. Overall, his first year as a starting quarterback is in the books, and we've talked about the Alabama game and that scramble and the throws that he did to beat Alabama, and the the urgency against Vanderbilt there early in the first quarter when Tennessee was down 14-0. He certainly had his moments. How would you assess Nico's performance as a first-year starter, redshirt freshman here at Tennessee?
Solid. I mean, solid. I mean, not great, but solid.
Knowing the expectations of him coming here, they're never going to live up.
Yeah, he was never going to live up to that. I mean, the guy was on Heisman watch list before he ever did it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So that's not that. I mean, I don't have any problem with where Nico's at right now from a development standpoint. I don't have any problem with the Nico being the guy at Tennessee. Did I think Tennessee's offense would be more explosive? Yes, 100%. Do I think he missed some deep shots that he should have connected on earlier in the year? Yes, I do. Do I think they should have been able to protect him better? They have to be able to protect him better. Should they have run him some more in some of these games? Would I have liked to have seen him run in the fourth quarter at Arkansas? Yeah, that might have helped you out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think he's fine. I think it's about what you put around him, and then I think it's about where his leadership is. He kind of took a little dig right last night, like, hey, everybody's got to look in the mirror, right? Okay, that are you going to take that banner and be that guy? You know what I'm saying? Are you going to say, hey, this is how we're going to do this, and that's going to be the end of that? And again, I mean, he did a lot of good things well, and I know that Sticks has it up there. I mean, he did not play particularly great against the elite competition in terms of stats. And I don't just, I mean, there's no disputing that. Think about this though. Last two seasons, Tennessee, and against Power 5 competition, has thrown for 300 yards once in 2 years. Once.
It's mind-blowing.
It's crazy. And yeah. I mean, they haven't thrown for 250 very often.
No.
I mean, and so that's what I'm saying. You've got to unlock the passing game a little bit in some different ways.
There was one game, and I mean, this doesn't matter. Maybe it was Mississippi State. It was one of those games this year where Nico finished like 6 yards shy of 300. I'm like, just let him throw one more pass. Like, just get him over 3, just so we could have another game to where a Tennessee quarterback's thrown over 300 yards, but it's just right under that.
Yeah, I'll say this. I thought he played with a lot of grit and a lot of toughness last night.
I agree.
I thought his competitiveness was really good last night. And so, you know, because that's one that was very easily that, hey, I don't know that I want to get up after that hit. But he got up and kept playing. And I'll give him credit for the grit that he played with.
Yeah, it wasn't Mississippi State. Zach says he didn't finish that game. It was one of those games. You're right about that. Ben says, and I brought this up earlier, am I a simpleton for being happy we made the playoff despite some obvious areas of improvement? My friends can't believe I'm not upset. I'm just not. We're finally nationally relevant. I think it's always good to have a pulse on where you were 4 years ago. You were a complete laughingstock. You had allegations about your program, impending recruiting violations coming down, players heading to the transfer portal, hiring a new athletic director. It felt like he struck out on whoever he wanted to, going to go get his coach that he had at his previous stop, and you just didn't know. There were so much unknowns, and I think it's important to remember where you were and how far you've come. And I mean, Tennessee, again, 10 wins, beat 2 of your big 3 in the college football playoff. Also, I think it's important to know that you always need to continue to take a step. This shouldn't be the apex. You want to continue to grow and compete for championships. So how I would answer that, Ben, no, I mean, you're not a simpleton, but also, and I'm sure you're not saying this, that you're not, but knowing that this isn't the end. It needs to continue getting better. Nobody needs to be complacent with this.
Well, if you want to be mad, okay, and this will happen as you move. Right now, it's all emotional because we're 24 hours away from where kickoff was last night. So it's fresh on everybody's mind. And what's going to be fresh on everybody's mind for a while is what happened last night. If you want to be angry about what happened this season, be angry about what happened at Arkansas.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one that you should not have lost that game. Okay. I would be more, I'm more disappointed in Tennessee for losing in Athens, Georgia than losing in Columbus, Ohio. Because I thought you were right there. I mean, you got a 10-0 lead to get started. There was a chance, I thought, to get over the hump with that one, and they didn't. I think if Tennessee plays Ohio State in Columbus, Ohio 12 more times, I don't care if it's 75 degrees outside or 28 degrees outside. I'm not sure Tennessee plays within 10 points of them in any of those 12 matchups right now, based on kind of what I saw last night.
Well, the way they played last night, heck
level,
no. Yeah.
That was a hornet's nest you walked into. SEC teams haven't gone up there and won. They haven't been up there very often anyway. But I would be more disappointed in Georgia, and I would be more angry about Arkansas when you get a month past this and you look back and reflect on the season.
Kevin says we lost a lot of institutional respect last night in terms of how the national perspective views Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee lost badly, don't get me wrong, but Tennessee was still a college football playoff team. And again, knowing how far it's come the last couple of years, I don't know if I would agree much with that. What about you, Bro?
Well, no, I mean, all I heard on game day was about how bad Tennessee's record was against top 5 opponents on the road prior to Tennessee playing. I mean, again, how many national people picked Tennessee to win that game? You know, I mean, So no, I don't think suddenly now Tennessee's a laughing stock or you'd lost. I mean, Tennessee's in this league. They're going to be on TV every week. They're going to be talked about every week. So no, I don't think that there's suddenly, I don't think that was your one moment and boy, you missed the moment and now you're forgotten about. Okay. You're not a one-hit wonder, band. That's not who you are. So I don't buy that one.
You're not the group of 5 that got its moment, and you don't know if you're ever going to get back.
I mean, I don't think you cycled up and you say, okay, we cycled up. This is our Cinderella run. Now we've lost 12 seniors that are irreplaceable. What are we going to do? It's like somebody asked earlier, like you got to go break the bank in the portal because of all the starters you're losing on this team. I don't see that. I mean, I don't. I mean, there's some answers you have to get, but you're not losing. I mean, your seniors helped, but your seniors weren't the only reason you were in the playoff last night.
No.
You're not that heavy of a senior class.
Tournament Bracket said, would Heupel ever consider taking the ball first on the road in these huge games? Team doesn't seem to respond well to these 10-0 starts in the hole. Heupel loves deferring if he wins the toss because you want to win that middle late. And Tennessee was in great position to win that middle late last night. Of course, Tennessee didn't do anything with it starting the third quarter, but Tennessee had that long sustaining drive, scored with less than a minute to go in the half. For as bad as you played in that first half, Tennessee was down by 11 at the break, got the football back, and that's why you defer if you get that opportunity. But again, to the poster's credit, maybe switch it up something. Maybe take the ball, want to start off fast, clean, go, just score first. I don't know. Maybe something to think. That's part of the self-scout as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think you change that up. I mean, you believe your defense can get off the field. No. You got a script on offense to start, whether you're down 7-0 or 0-0, the script shouldn't change, right? You're not abandoning they scored one touchdown. We're throwing out the playbook and we're not going to run anything we prepped for because the game is totally different now. I mean, you're just kind of settled in there. I just think you got to play better out of the gate, whether you're starting on offense or whether you're starting on defense. I think you got to get off the field. And Tennessee had a chance defensively. They didn't do it. And then offensively, they couldn't get anything going early. And a lot of that was because you didn't have any protection early. You look at it, Nico was either getting sacked or he was scrambling and throwing the ball away or whatever. I mean, they just didn't have a chance. And they didn't win. They didn't win some early routes at the receiver position. I mean, they got manhandled to start the game on offense. Now, they were manhandled most of the entire game with the exception of the second quarter, but they were really manhandled to start that game. I mean, really got taken out of anything they wanted to try to do to start that game.
SEC football wants to know, will this hurt future recruiting?
Losing that game? No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe if you're going straight up against Ohio State with somebody, but no, I don't think that. I don't think suddenly now somebody's not interested in you because you lost a college football playoff game. I don't. Again, you didn't play well. It leaves a sour taste. Remember, kids are different now. I mean, what you think and how you feel today is probably very different than how people who were dressed in a uniform and played last night feel. And certainly a different feeling than what a high school kid is thinking about or a portal kid's thinking about when it means coming to Tennessee.
Yep, the things you evaluate are a lot different now than what they used to be for sure. Zach wants to know he'd be fine with Peyton Lewis, running back's the least of his worries. Obviously, Dylan Sampson, is he going to come back, go to the NFL? We assume going to the NFL, SEC Player of the Year. And on that note, though, Peyton Lewis, he showed a lot of things this year. Where are you at with Tennessee? Say you got Peyton Lewis coming back, Deshaun Bishop coming back. Of course, you're bringing in 2 backs as well. Would Tennessee go add another one as well? We'd have to find out. But Peyton Lewis, played a lot this year. Deshaun Bishop played a lot this year.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I mean, we for all the I think justified criticisms on not having some guys ready at some positions. We didn't see a lot of Mike Matthews early in the year, and I know he had the hamstring, and we're not seeing a bunch of high school kids in a rotation on the offensive line, or anything like that. Remember, Peyton Lewis didn't do anything in spring practice.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't. I mean, the first time Peyton Lewis carried the football in college football practice was in fall camp, and they got him. I mean, give Darrell Sims credit for getting him ready and putting him out there and playing him and getting him going. He certainly did not look like someone, and I know he got the yards late in the game, but he did not look like a fish out of water last night. I mean, he did not look lost in any way, shape, or form. I think there's a lot to feel good about with Peyton Lewis's future.
Yeah, I would agree. There are a couple of really nice freshmen on this team. Peyton Lewis, obviously Boo Carter. Mike Matthews had some moments. Again, didn't get to see him play as much as everybody probably thought we were going to get to see him play, especially early on. But there's you look at that freshman class and some of these redshirt freshmen. Again, Tennessee's got a lot of guys who have played a lot early on, and it's got a core. You're losing a lot of seniors and guys like Cooper Mays who are going to be big losses for sure. But you do have a nice core that should be returning. But nobody's ever safe in today's college football environment. Let's see here. Okay, we got another super chat here. This one's from Donovan. We know Boo's on defense, but we know what he does with the ball in his hand. Should we switch to offense? I mean, offense needs something. Package player, potentially. I mean, would Heupel ever entertain a Travis Hunter type player?
Should. Should. You're looking for playmakers. Got to get creative with some things. I mean, I'm not saying that you're going to play Boo Carter 70 snaps on both sides of the ball. I don't think it's going to be that kind of Travis Hunter deal by any means. But yeah, why not? Why not have a few things for him out there, a couple of wrinkles out there that you can do stuff with him. Have him in some jet sweep action. Maybe he gets it. Maybe he's a distraction. Creativity. Yeah, I would like to see him. I would like to see them work a package there to see what that looks like and what that could be, because I do think he's dynamic with the ball in his hands. I think the other thing, too, is I'm looking forward to seeing him another year as a punt returner. I guess they had great respect for the Ohio State punter last night. I know he didn't punt much, but, I mean, the ball hit 15 yards in front of Boo every time because the punt was a lot short. Scoot up.
Yeah.
Scoot up, catch it. You know what I'm saying? And give it, I'm not saying he would have scored or anything like that, but he's good with the ball in his hand. Give him a chance,
Yeah, when you're looking for a splash play, when you're looking for something, help yourself out. Scoot up a little bit when given the opportunity. Yeah. Brent, kind of set the scene for what the next couple of days are going to look like for Tennessee. Obviously, season's over. You got Christmas coming up. They're about to go home. They'll come back to campus around the 20th. A lot of conversations are going to be happening in terms of players deciding if they want to go in the transfer portal or not. So as Tennessee is going to be evaluating players in the transfer portal, kind of reset the table on what positions, and again, this can all change depending on who leaves, but which position groups do you think Tennessee will attack in the portal? And what do the next couple of days look like, at least this week on the holiday?
Well, players are going to go home tomorrow, and they get to go home for Christmas, and quite frankly, they get to go home until late January. They won't be back for a month. So you're going to get away. They're going to get away. The portal closes on the 28th. So I think the biggest question is who else is going in? I don't know that you'll have a lot of Christmas Eve, Christmas Day activity. But after that, the last couple of days, who else goes in the portal? Does anybody else go in tomorrow? Where are they with some of those guys? I don't think it's over. I mean, it would not surprise me at all to see what that there's some more movement there. And I think that movement will largely depend on exactly what Tennessee's looking for. Clearly, they brought in 2 offensive linemen and they brought in 2 defensive linemen. So Yeah, I mean, I think if the right defensive lineman wanted to come for the right reasons, then I think that they would go there. I think they have to look at receiver. I think they're looking at receiver out there. What's realistic? What's not realistic? Where are you financially in terms of how much money you're going to put into that? How much money do you have to put into that versus how much money you are to keep some of your guys on your roster? All those things are going into the play, and it's and what the spreadsheet looked like this morning doesn't look like that not tonight. It'll look different tomorrow than it looks today. It's an ever evolving deal that is going to depend where their needs are. Will depend on who's here and who's not here. Who do they want to keep? Who do they not want to keep? Who wants to stay? Who doesn't want to stay? All those things are what we're watching here over the course of the next 4 or 5 days, because it'll be a wild week for sure.
Would Tennessee ever entertain a general manager position in an official role? Because you're seeing a lot of programs do that.
It's a great question. Here's the interesting thing about the general manager position, and I'm glad you brought that up. I know we're getting close to being done for the hour, but if I go over here on a soapbox, I apologize. I think you have to have, quote, a general manager role. But we don't know exactly what that role is. Like, I don't think you can go get a retired GM or an out of working GM in the NFL. Let's use John Robinson, for example, with the Titans, just because that's a GM name I can think of right now. Okay, I'm not saying that's who you get, because I know some people are Titan fans going, I don't want that guy around, But let's just use him for example. You bring him in. What is his learning curve for what the college game is right now? Because those guys with the NFL background live in a world of salary cap. They live in a world of a 53-man roster. They live in a world of, all right, we got this guy on a 3-year deal. We're good for 3 years. We don't have to worry about him. Okay, we'll circle around and look at him. When do we need to start negotiation? Are we going to let him be a free agent? The college world right now, the guys with NFL GM experience, whether they've been a GM or they've worked in the front office, doesn't translate. Okay. The problem is there's no job in the college game that translates into what you're doing right now. Yeah. Okay. A recruiting coordinator is not a GM because that guy's never worked with a budget before. He's never told a coach, no, we can't do that for your roster, or a position coach, no, we can't keep that person. You're going to have to figure out a way to win without them because we don't have the money to do that. So I think there's a role there, but who's qualified for the job? I think that's the fascinating part of it. It's like Bill Belichick brought in Michael Lombardi, who's an NFL guy. Well, wait a minute. How many times did he look at a meeting and go, wait, they're eligible for free agency when? Today. Tomorrow.
This is an everyday thing?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, think about it. All the guys that are in sweatsuits Saturday on the sideline can go in the portal in April. All your midterm enrollees, they can be free agents in April.
Yep.
4 months on your campus, and they can be free agents again if they want to. It's such a different world that I do think coaches need help. Where is that? What is that person? Where do you get that person from? You know what I'm saying? I mean, like what department do they come out of to be a GM? How quickly could an NFL guy get up to speed, learning how to manage it all and deal with it? It's just, there's a lot of differences between the NFL and the college game right now and roster management. But there's nobody in the college game that's done anything like we're doing right now in roster management. It's really pretty fascinating.
Of all the changes that have hit college athletics the last couple of years, the unlimited transfer might be one of the biggest impactful ones, because it truly has created the free agency every single day.
Well, what it's done is it took and has given the student athlete all the power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because they have the leverage every year. Because you can't say to him, okay, you want to leave? Well, you're going to have to go sit somewhere for a while. They have complete leverage and the ability to move around however they want to move around. And it's going to force people to say no. And probably tell some players you like, some players you think would be needed for a depth piece. And, we can't keep you because we don't have the funds to do all those things. So I don't disagree with you. NIL is not what the people who, it's not name, image, likeness. It's a salary. Okay. No. It's pay for play. Let's just stop calling it anything other than that. And that is a huge factor, but you're exactly right. The ability to move anywhere you want to freely every year, multiple times a year, is what's changed the course of college football dramatically. Mm-hmm. That's why the NIL salaries, the NIL budget has more than doubled in 2 years. It's the freedom of movement that's created that leveraging power for the student athlete that they're capitalizing on right now.
So Tennessee's football season ends 42-17 in the first round of the college football playoffs to Ohio State. Now roster management is the primary focus, and no better place to stay up to date on who's coming for visits, who might be going to the transfer portal, all that and more, plus continuous recruiting. Number one Tennessee basketball, baseball season less than 2 months away. All that and more than at Volquest.com. Had a blast talking with you guys, answering questions, hanging out with you guys all football season every Sunday night here on the Rocky Top Rewind. And really thank you for being here. We enjoy doing this. We'll have specialty shows throughout the rest of the athletics year. Of course, I'll have the baseball podcast back in the spring as well. So really do appreciate you guys. But if you're watching and asking questions right now, but not a member over at Volquest.com, we do this every day, essentially, on the General's Quarters. So encourage you to do that. Volquest.com, nuggets from Austin Price and Matt Ray, from Brent Hubbs, Grant Ramey, Rob Lewis, myself, all that and more over at Volquest.com. Big thank you, as always, to our friends, our presenting sponsor of the show, that is Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP. A great partnership that we've had with them for the last couple of years. They've been in business for 43 years. This specific partnership since 2012. They've got, ready for today's modern legal demands. You can pick up the phone and for a free consultation. You can dial 423-245-4185. That is 423-245-4185. Or visit them online at Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP.com. You got a problem, let them find a solution for you. TN Trial Lawyers. For Brent Hubbs, I am Eric Kane. Thank you so much for joining us here, and thanks for being with us all football season long here on the Rocky Top Rewind.